Hi everybody and welcome back to BeginnerJS. I'm Abrar and I'm your instructor for this video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about arrays. Now in JavaScript, arrays are important for storing, organizing, working with, and managing data. So let's talk more about them. Okay, so what exactly are arrays? Why do we need arrays in JavaScript? And what are they used for? Well, in short, arrays are used to store multiple values together in a single variable. Now, as you might notice, usually in JavaScript, values are stored separately. So for example, if you create a string, you can store it in a variable, you can create a number or a boolean or something like that, and you can store them in different variables or just have them separately in your JavaScript code. However, sometimes when you're working with data that are related to one another, you might want to store multiple values or related values together in one place, and you might want to be able to access them predictably from a single variable. Basically, you need a way of storing multiple values together as a list, and that is where arrays come in. Arrays are actually a type of objects in JavaScript, but for now you can basically think of them as a way of storing multiple values as a list together in JavaScript. So let's see an example. Okay, so here we have an example of an array in JavaScript. Now as you can see here, the arrays start and end with a pair of square brackets. So at the very start of the array, you type in the starting square bracket, and at the very end of the array, you type in the ending square bracket. And between these two square brackets is where you input all the values that you want to store inside the array. So whenever you put a pair of square brackets in JavaScript, you're creating an array. Now inside the arrays, you can have multiple values. You can have anywhere from a handful of values to dozens, hundreds, thousands, and more. And each value within the array is separated by a comma. And the values themselves can be almost anything. They can be strings, they can be numbers, they can be booleans, even other arrays themselves. So in this case, for example, we have exactly 5 different elements or 5 items inside the array. The first item is a string A. So basically we have the string A, and the second item is a string B. As you can see, we're separating these items by a comma. So we type in string A, then a comma, string B, then comma, then the next value, comma, next value, and so on until the array ends. So in this case, we have the first value, the string A, comma, the second value, the string B, then comma, the third value, which is the number 4. So as you can see, arrays can contain strings, numbers, booleans, and other different types of values and objects you'll learn about later on. Now, after 4, as you can see, we have a comma, and then we have our fourth value, which actually is another array itself. So you can have arrays inside arrays as well. These are called multidimensional arrays. So in this case, as the fourth value inside our main array, we have another array, a child array. And inside that array, we have 2 more values, the string hello and the boolean false. And finally, as the fifth and last value of our main array, we have a boolean true. Finally, we end the statement with a semicolon. And that is how you can create an array in JavaScript. Usually, these types of arrays are used to store multiple values together, which are related to one another. So if you have a list of values which are related to one another that you want to store together in one place, you can use arrays. Now, declaring an array like that is useful, however, you can't really do much with it. Arrays are often assigned as values to variables, so they can be referenced by their variable names, and they can be modified and used over and over again. So in this case, let's do just that. Let's declare a variable and we'll name it array. So var array equals the basic array that we just declared in the first statement. So now we have a variable called array which contains our array. Alright, so here we have a piece of code that says array and then a pair of square brackets, and inside a pair of square brackets we have the number 0. And the output of this code, as you can see, is the string A. So what exactly is going on here? Well, when you create an array, you can actually access the individual elements by using the bracket syntax along with the index of the specific element. So what exactly is an index? Well, when you create an array, each individual item or element is actually assigned an index, and this index starts from 0. So the very first element of an array contains the index 0, the second element contains the index 1, the third element contains the index 2, and so on. So in our array, for example, the very first element is a string A, the second element is a string B, and the third element is number 4, and so on. So in this case, the very first element has the index 0. So the string A, or the very first element, has the index 0. String B, or the second element, has the index 1, and the number 4, or the third element, has the index 2. And if you want to access the individual elements of this array, you can actually use the respective indexes. So in order to do that, you type in the variable name which contains the array, so array, and then a pair of square brackets. And inside the pair of square brackets is where you input the index. So in this case, we can type in array square bracket 0 to access the first element, because again, the very first element has the index 0, and in our array, that very first element is a string A. So string A is the first element which contains this index 0. So array square bracket 0 means we're telling JavaScript to retrieve the first element or the element with an index 0, which in this case is a string A, and that is the output result. As you can see on the right hand side, it retrieves the string A, and that is how you can retrieve individual items using their indexes from inside the array. Similarly, array square brackets 2 outputs 4, because again, indexes start from 0. So the very first element has an index 0, the second element has an index 1, the third element has an index 2. So in this case, array square brackets 2 means the element with the index 2, which in this case is the third element. And the third element inside our array is the number 4, because again, we first have string A, then string B, then number 4. So the third element, or the element with the index 2, is number 4. And that's why array square brackets 2 results in the output, the number 4. Now similarly, array square brackets 3 means the fourth element inside our array. And inside our array, we have the fourth element, which is actually another array. So we have another array, or child array, inside our parent array or our main array. And this array too counts as an item. So in this case, we first have the string A, then string B, number 4, and then the fourth element is the another array itself. So when we type in array square brackets 3, meaning we're retrieving the fourth element, which is a nested array in our case, the output of this code is actually the array itself. So in this case, JavaScript outputs the array itself with the string hello and the boolean false, because that is the item with index 3, or the fourth element inside the array. Now you can also access the individual elements inside the nested array itself. Now remember, array square brackets 3 retrieves another array, right? The child array or the nested array. However, the nested array is an array as well. So you can actually type in array square brackets 3 and then another pair of square brackets and the index to actually retrieve the elements from inside the nested array. So in this case, array square brackets 3 square brackets 1 means we're actually accessing the element with index 1, or the second element of the nested array itself. So in this case, the second element of the nested array is the boolean false, and that is why array square brackets 3 square brackets 1 results in the value false. If we had array square brackets 3 square brackets 0, we would get the string hello as an output. And that is how you can create single-dimensional or multi-dimensional arrays and access the individual values using their indexes. Now just like strings, numbers, and booleans, arrays have a lot of properties and methods available to them as well. Let's take a look at some of them in this example. So in order to illustrate the different properties and methods available to arrays, let's create an array ourselves so we can work with it and test out different properties and methods on it. We will assign this array to a variable named fruits. So var fruits equals the array. And in this case, the array contains 3 values, 3 strings to be specific. First we have the string apple, then the string banana, then the string orange. So we have these 3 items as our values inside the fruits array. And this whole array is contained in the variable named fruits. So we can say that we have an array named fruits. Okay, so one of the properties that are available to arrays is the length property. And this is actually very similar to the length property available to strings. For arrays, the length property will tell you exactly how many items are there inside the array. So in this case, we have a fruits array which contains 3 items, right? We have the first item apple, second item banana, third item orange, all strings. So we have 3 total items or elements inside the array. And that is why fruits.length, which means we're accessing the length property of the fruits array using the dot syntax, outputs the value, the number 3. Because that is the length of the array, or exactly how many items are there inside the array. So you can use the length property on an array to quickly retrieve exactly how many items the array contains. Now here's a cool trick. If you have an array and you want to retrieve the last item of that specific array, you can type in the array name, for example fruits, then square brackets, then the array.length, so fruits.length minus 1. And that would actually retrieve the very last item from the array. So how does this work exactly? Well, fruits.length in this case retrieves the length of the array, which in this case is 3 because we have 3 items inside the array. And fruits.length minus 1 means 3 minus 1, or 2. So fruits.length minus 1 results in the number 2. And so fruit square bracket fruits.length minus 1 means fruit square bracket 2. And 2 in this case is actually the index of the very last element, or the index of the element orange. So that's why fruits square brackets fruits.length minus 1 gives us the very last element of the array, or the string orange. And this actually shows a very cool relationship between the length property and the indexes. The length property tells you how many items are there inside the array, and the index of the very last element of the array is always the length minus 1. And that is because indexes start from 0, whereas the length is counted from 1. Okay, so far we know how to create arrays and also how to retrieve the different elements or individual items from a specific array. But what about changing the value of a specific element inside the array? How do you actually do that? Well, you can again do that using the index of that specific element. So for example, fruit square brackets 2 means we're accessing the value of the element with index 2. And in this case, with our fruits array, we have 3 items, apple, banana, and orange. And the element with index 2 is the last element, or the string orange. So if you just type in fruit square brackets 2, you get the value orange. However, if you want to change this value, you can actually reassign a different value to it, and that will work just fine. So you can type in fruit square brackets 2 equals another array to change the value from orange to a different value. In this case, we're changing the value from orange to the string mango, then a semicolon to end the statement. And now the fruits array has been changed. Previously it contained apple, banana, and orange, but now the last element, the orange string, has been replaced with the string mango. And you can actually verify that by typing in the name of the variable. So in this case, you can type in fruits and then a semicolon to actually retrieve the value of the fruits variable, which in this case is the array, of course. And now the array, as you can see, contains the values apple, banana, and mango, where previously it contained the values apple, banana, and orange. So you reassign a different value, mango, to the element with index 2, which means orange got replaced with mango. And that is how you can change the values of different elements inside the array. Now let's take a look at some methods of arrays. Now one useful method that is available to arrays is the pop method. The pop method can be used to remove a very last item from an array. So in this case, when we execute the pop method on an array, the array is modified and the very last element of that array is removed. So we can type in fruits.pop and then a pair of parentheses to actually execute the function and a semicolon to end the statement. And now the very last element should be removed from the array. And we can verify that by checking the value of the fruits array by typing in fruits and then semicolon. And as you can see, the array has indeed been modified, because previously the array contained apple, banana, and mango. However, the last element, or the string mango, has been removed because of the pop method. And now we only have 2 items with the values apple and banana. And that is how you can use the pop method to remove the very last item from an array. Now the counterpart of the pop method is the push method. The push method can be used to add another item at the very end of an array. So you can use the push method to push in another item at the very end of an array. And the push method accepts a parameter as an argument inside the pair of parentheses. And this parameter is a value that you want to add to the very end of the array. So we can test it out by typing in fruits.push and then pair of parentheses, and inside the pair of parentheses, we type in the value that we want to add at the very end. In this case, we want to add the string peach to the very end of the array. And finally, a semicolon to end the statement. And now we should have the string peach added to the very end of this array. So let's check that out. So when we type in fruits again, as you can see, the array has been again modified, and now it contains apple, banana, and peach. So the push method has worked correctly. Using the push method, we have pushed another value to the very end of the array. And that is how you can create, modify, and use arrays in JavaScript.